home. And a very good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our Lyceum evening, coming to you from the Paul Christian Spiritualist Church. And we're down on the south coast of the UK. Big warm welcome to our guest tonight, the lovely Mark Stone. Mark, good evening. And
evening, Lawrence.
Thank you for offering to be here tonight. So much appreciated. I have a terrible I hate asking things. I do. I really hate asking things.
No, I always love opportunities to discuss, opportunities to work with people. I love and these sessions, as I've said so many times when I've been on with you, when these started in COVID times originally, these are for me and for lots of people, wonderful resource and way of connecting, learning and growing, which is great. So I'm always happy to be here.
Right, it's wonderful. So you're on every Saturday now until Christmas. That'd be great. Thank you, Mark.
So I'm sacrificing Eurovision for this. You do realise.
All right, you can get it on catch up. Yeah. Mark, you have been involved with spiritualism since childhood.
Points, but anyway.
Sorry, good. Sorry, you just wobbled a bit there.
Yes, it's all right. You're back again. You disappeared on this end as well. We have technical glitches, gremlins.
Just those deer in the garden nibbling the lines. I was just saying, you've been involved in spiritualism since childhood.
Yep, born and raised.
And your various talents and skills and the development of Mark in Reiki, in mediumship, in teaching, tutoring, mentoring, so many fields, so much to talk about. And here we are today, 2026. I found it very interesting. I was very fortunate to be given a big box of really old newspapers. And I did find it really interesting that so many of the topics being talked about in like 1936, guess what?
Same topics.
We're still arguing about them.
Yep. Well, when we went on our open day to Stansted, that very early morning start that we had, and I said to you, didn't we? That was our first conversation. I got that hymn in my head, Tell Me the Old Story. And I said to you that day, I said, no matter how many decades go by, we're having the same discussions, the same concerns, the same issues, the same worries all the way through. It's just a different generation experiencing them, but it's the same things that are going through. And I was fascinated when you got those papers, because I've got loads of back issues of all sorts of things. And it's fascinating when you go back and you look and you see different mediums and the mediums of the time and the reporting of spiritualism. More than now, everything tends to be kind of glossy and celebrity, rather than here's a paper that's actually showing you all of the churches and what's going on and really quite serious debate and subject matter within the papers and things. I find them fascinating.
Yes. And some of the articles were absolutely engrossing, and I'm just so pleased. I'll be handing them over to Nick Witham to go back for the Silver Birch research, because obviously there's a lot of columns written in there by Maurice Barbanel.
Yeah.
And again, as I say, the topics, I'm like, this is what we're talking about today. We have an unfortunate tendency. I'm going to talk about spiritualism, but I'm sure you can mirror this onto any demographic. So it could be doctors, nurses, policemen, teachers, whatever. But we do have this unfortunate thing about cleaving on to the negative of things. We look for the negative. There's been various and a recent debacle about stuff, and everybody's gone straight in on the negative thing. And I always find that really perplexing because, we work with energy. We we should understand energy. And we should also understand what we put out is what we get back. And what we put out actually lands on people's shoulders and sits there.
Mm.
If we do absent healing, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
In the same manner, if we're doing absent maliciousness,
it has an effect out there for sure.
Exactly.
I refer when I'm teaching healing with people, and I refer to worry as anti-prayer. It's the opposite of creating a positive force, because you're worrying about and focusing on that negativity. But it's interesting. You had our American friends over recently, and we often think of the different divide between the hyper positivity that we think of in American culture and the British moan in the queue, if you like. And I'm really broad brush stroking, so please don't kill me, those that are listening. But there does tend to be, a culture of liking good moan, but sometimes we need to get stuff out. We need to have a bit of a rant and a get it out, but not sit and seethe on it and keep going and going and going. And I think that when we can choose to look for the positive in things, or we can choose to look and moan about the negative. And it's much easier often to remain in the more negative state and mindset, because, if we have a little look around us at the moment in the world, there's plenty we could moan about.
Yeah.
But there's actually quite a lot that we could say thank heavens for, and I'm grateful for, and I'm blessed to have. But I think it's about how much energy and effort sometimes to stay more positive it can be, because it's easier to get swayed into the negativity, and depending on what we're going through in our life at the time, what experiences we're having, what we're up against within relationships, health, well-being, it affects. And we are oscillating emotionally, mentally, spiritually, as we move through life. That's a given. We can't think that we're going to live in cloud cuckoo land and have rose-colored specs on for everything, because that wouldn't be helpful, and actually wouldn't be realistic to say that everything in the garden is always rosy. There's going to be something that causes us difficulty, causes us upset. Relationships, friendships, colleagues, family members. There are going to be times of struggle. There are going to be times of conflict within our movement. We see that, and we see conflict with different people for different reasons. We may feel, that we're against it, or people are against us. Again, that can sometimes just be a perception. I've met many people that go, someone doesn't like me, they don't like me. And go, how do you know? What have they said? Well, it's nothing that they've said or done. And you go, okay, so at the moment, that's your perception, but maybe you're perceiving them wrong. I can always remember there's somebody that I said to my mum, and I said, I don't think they like me. I don't think they like me. And my mum said, no, they do. They really talk highly about you. And anyway, when we finally got to know each other properly, she said, I was so frightened of meeting you and always so fearful of talking to you, because I'd heard so much about you before I met you. I was fearful. So what I was reading as she was holding back and being defensive was her fear about who she thought I was and how I would be. But I was reading it in she doesn't like me for some reason. What it was the fear of wanting, to connect, but not sure how to approach me or how to work with me. So, we make assumptions, we make, we have perceptions of the world, which sometimes are not necessarily our mediumistic or psychic perception. Sometimes it is, we're getting in our own head and projecting our own stuff to do with other people. And there's a lovely comment: what other people think of you is none of your business.
Very
If
true.
they like you. If they don't like you, stuff them. That's a polite one. I kept that polite. Did you hear that? Because it's going to get replayed. I don't want it bleeped. But there is, we, especially I think in all areas of life, and again, as you said, in all areas, there are, we don't want to make enemies. We don't want to have problems with other people. That's not what we want. There are some people that love the drama and love conflict. That's almost their reason to live, their raison d'etre. But for a lot of us, we want to be liked, and we want to be, have nice relationships and nice friendships, and we don't want to upset anyone, and we don't want to hurt someone. But, things that we do may have a knock-on effect that causes that. We might make a choice or a decision in our life that upsets a family member. You decide to move to a different part of the country or a different part of the world. And there's this tug on the heartstrings about, I don't want to let my family down, but I also want to have this experience. Or, it may be that, family members don't always approve of your lifestyle or your partner or your whatever you choose to do, your job, whatever it may be. And then we have the wider world, the people that we come into contact with. And again, we don't want to upset anyone or hurt anyone in any way, shape or form deliberately. But unintentionally, we may not, as we walk the corridor, because we're in our own world. I don't know whether that's, we've had a cut out there. So we may walk past someone in the corridor. I'll repeat it. Did it do it? Okay. Walk past someone in the corridor and pay them really no attention. And that person thinks that we've upset them and that we're upset with them. But we might have been in our own little world because we're concerned and we've got the weight of the world on our shoulders, and we've not deliberately blanked them. We haven't really been thinking about our surroundings. We're engrossed in our own little mindset. But the person goes away with a perception. And that's the thing. There's a lovely my friend Mickey was telling me about, I think it's Breen Brown, the author, who says, ask the question. So if you're concerned about something, ask the question. Don't sit there pondering, does this person like me, or have I upset this person, or have I done it? Go and ask the person the question. Because often what you think they're thinking isn't what they're thinking at all. And you can sort of find out, what is there a problem? Is there an issue? Have I upset you? I can remember years ago, I had the most vivid dream, which I didn't know was a dream at the time, of me having an argument at work. This was when I was working in Christchurch. And in this dream, I had the most humdinging argument with a colleague. And it was so vivid and so real. The following day, I actually assumed it had happened the day before. It was that vivid. And the colleague in question that following day didn't talk to me. Wherever I went, they moved out of that space. And I got to the point and I was thinking, she's really still upset about this argument that we had. And it got right to the end of the day. And I said, oh, Nikki, can I ask you something? Did we have a massive argument yesterday? And she went, no. And I went, oh, it was a dream then. It was just that today you've hardly talked to me. And I thought that argument had really happened yesterday. And it was, but she was busy doing everything she needed to do. So wasn't paying me the normal chit chat that we used to have. But in my head, I got to that perception. That argument must have been real. Because my perception was, why is she ignoring me today if that argument hasn't happened? So perception, I think, is a key thing. And an assumption, makes an ass out of you and me. And a lot of time people assume things have been said, things have been done. And again, it's part of the learning that we have to go through in all relationships, regardless of spiritualism, is dealing with other people and learning how to deal with other people and learning how to have sometimes the difficult conversation and the difficult questions.
Yeah, that's so true. There's two levels in everything you just said there. The part of the legacy course taken by Stephen Mager he was talking about ethos, pathos, and logos, and I've never come across this before. So the ethos is I'm Lawrence Saville and I run Paul Church. The pathos is the issue. So Mark Stone keeps letting me down and not turning up, and when he does, absolutely appalling. But then we move into that phase, the logo, where you actually do something about it. And I found that so fascinating when we were shown this, and it really has made a little nest in my head about things. And it's so true. But also there's another level there about how our perception is something I'm working on at the moment with mediumship, my own mediumship, and in circles which I take. And it's about how I've done this experiment now a couple of times, and it's fascinating. I'll give the circle 3 bits of evidence. So a boy, a ball, and a trophy. And they are to write out what the message is. And you get 10 totally different stories.
Yeah.
To me, that's just demonstrate, because we need a story, don't we? We need that path that we can follow. So in our mediumship and our evidential mediumship, and we see this time and time again, and we all do it ourselves, and we go, oh no, I've got that wrong, because we get dragged off on this path.
Yeah.
And it's a really fascinating, I'm trying to overcome it in mediumship. And the only way I can think about it is if I'm given some sort of a massive sedative. But probably not a good idea.
But you're back to that idea of trying to get out of the way, which is a prevalent thing in a lot of, when I go on workshops with trance or mediumship or healing, you keep hearing people saying, I want to get out the way more. And actually, by doing that, you're creating, in my opinion, you're creating more struggle, because it's through you. It's got to come through you. Yeah. So you can't get out the way. Not really. What you want to be able to do is put aside the analytical mind a bit, the questioning mind, the doubting mind. You can still ask questions because you're communicating. You're inquiring about evidence, information, the story, whatever's happening or whatever's going on with the sitter. But you don't want to be in that doubting, is this real? Is this working? Is it good enough? Is it not good enough? Am I getting it right? Am I not getting it right? Because then you're the focus in that, rather than just letting the case of saying, okay, this person in the other world knows why they're coming. They know their intention. They know their loved one. And, my job, if you refer to it as that, is to be able to put across and bring out what's there. And yes, there may be times when we get it just a little bit off because we take it to a personal reference. But that's quite common, though, because we're generally going to pick up on and sense and feel things that we relate to. Yeah. Things that we don't relate to are going to be, depending on the way you perceive evidence and information, some things will be dramatically more difficult for you to pick up on because of it's not in your mindset, and also it's how the other world have got to get that information registered within you. And of course, sometimes that's when we miss something because it's not quite there in how we're perceiving it and how we're putting it together.
Yeah.
And that again, that varies from demo to demo, communicator to communicator, sitter to sitter, because every single time is a unique experience. And therefore we can't, this is, and I noticed Roy's put in, self-criticism is sometimes so obstructive, and it is. But actually, I was thinking the other day, because we went off on our lovely jolly to Stansted, to the open day, and it was lovely to see other mediums work and to be inspired. And This is a bit about when you're observing your own mediumship and observing other people's, because a lot of times people look and compare rather than look to be inspired. So people go, oh, I'll never be able to do it like them, or they're lucky because... luck is often only having done all the preparation work to be ready when the time comes. People, when they say, oh, they've had a lucky break, I can probably guarantee you the hours or years of sweat, blood and tears that have gone into that moment and that work for that one time for it to pay off, to get that break, whatever that may be. But comparison is the thief of joy. So if you're looking at other people constantly and comparing your mediumship to theirs in a positive or a negative way, you are setting up this critical mindset. And if you're very critical of others, then in your subconscious programming, you're going to be thinking, what do other people think of me? Constantly. Yep. So therefore, we can observe other people's work. And I always say to people, observe any demonstration, any worker, and look at what went well, what didn't maybe go so well, what was good, what wasn't so good. Was there things that you thought, actually, that's a wonderful way of putting that information? I'm going to remember that. So if ever I have to work with that, that's a good way of putting it across without it being too blunt or too heavy. So you observe it, but you're not comparing it, you're not criticizing it, you're observing and learning from, and learning that if somebody is attaining that level of mediumship that you aspire to, let it inspire you. Don't let down wasting my time, or I'll never get. That's always about the the journey of unfoldment. The mediumship evolves and changes. My mediumship isn't the same as when I was 17.
Yeah.
And it's probably not even the same as it was 2-3 years ago. It changes, it evolves, and that's the thing that we need to realize, that we will always aspire to, and we always want to do the best job we can and be the best that we can, but that doesn't in itself mean that means we move into a sense of competition with other people. Because that's one of the other biggest things, the feeling of competitiveness amongst people, and there doesn't need to be. Just be the best you, rather than wanting to be better than.
Brilliant.
Definitely.
We're just going to take a little back step in the conversation here, because lovely Jan Ridge,
hi Jan,
the earlier conversation about, is this our distorted reality? And I find that interesting, because the thing that sprang to mind is, if you lived in a tower block of 100 flats, you're going to have 100 versions of the world. So when we say distorted, it's
our perception, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have that comment, walking a mile in another man's shoes. You can't comment on someone else's life unless you've had their life from their perspective. Not really, because you don't know. Not one person's life is the same life as anyone else. Even if you took identical twins that did exactly the same things every day, their perceptions of the world will still be different. They will still be different, genetically very similar, but as the individual that they are, very different. And I think that this is again why in our personal development, and I'm sure this is things that you've come into on the legacy course, we have to learn what the world is to us, what our mediumship is to us, what the divine God power is to us. And we have to look at what it is to us. And about us and our mediumship, I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought, we should come to a point in our awareness and our development that we should be secure enough that we don't need anyone else to approve.
Yeah.
That my belief, my understanding, my perceptions of the world, whatever it may be, I am happy with, I'm comfortable in, and I don't need anyone to agree with me for me to be secure in what I feel and what I know. So therefore, if somebody has a difference of opinion, that's absolutely fine. I don't have to argue to bring you onto my side.
Yeah.
I don't have to force you to be one thing or another. I can say, That's great. Different of opinion than me, but that's absolutely fine. That's good. But we often find nowadays, I think we've talked about this before, everybody has become a keyboard warrior since our days very much behind the keyboards for COVID. And a lot of people, it's you're right, there's a right or there's a wrong.
Yeah.
And which side are you on? And, we can take that within spiritualism and also outside of spiritualism, looking at the world and political circumstances, etc. We all have our own opinion on what's going on, and we all have our own perception based on where we get evidence and information from. Again, exactly the same in spiritualism. Who and what are we actually connecting to? And are we connecting to the other world when we say, my guide says, and sometimes is it my guide, or is it just the calls are coming from within the house, not from outside of it? Are we perceiving things in the right way? And again, nobody can tell you whether you're really right or wrong on it. It's the perception you have. But we need to realize that other people may not take our perception, our perspective, and approve of it, like it, run with it, or not want to become in conflict with you because of it.
Yeah, so true. It is a thing that I've noticed, and do it myself, although I'm working very hard not doing it now, is after working, whether it be one-to-one, stop smiling, one-to-one or... yeah. No, that's another issue. That's for another night. Is we beat ourselves up.
Mm-hmm.
We come down and think, I didn't get this, didn't get that, and it's always like these first thoughts. Didn't get this, didn't get that, didn't get, and I just think we really need to work on this balance thing here.
That's comparison to an expectation. Because we know when we have what I would call the golden moment, when we get a message where you can't put a foot wrong, and that all this information and all this evidence and this story and names and all sorts of stuff comes out in the message, and you absolutely feel like you've been touched by the hand of God in that moment. The thing is that, like we said earlier, that isn't necessarily every single time you work.
Yeah.
And you compare, rather than thinking, okay, this may not have been the greatest that I've done this year, or this isn't the best service that I've did, or last week's service was much better. But actually, we're judging someone else's message. And as the medium, we're starting to judge whether we think that we did the best for the spirit world because we didn't get what we wanted. But that might not have been what the spirit world needed to give in that moment. We come back to what is evidential for an individual. What does an individual need in a message or in a communication? And often, we're wanting a certain level of evidence or information that we feel proves our mediumship to be correct. But that's them making mediumship about us. Yeah. And the demonstration of mediumship is about everyone else but us, because it's about the spirit world coming and having their voice and the recipients receiving that message. We're the intermediary. Okay, there is an importance, because if we weren't there, that experience wouldn't be happening. And our nature, our personality, whoever we are and however we present, becomes part of that message. But actually, whether we think whatever we think of it isn't essential. We can observe again and say, do you know what? Yes, that felt awkward. But then look at, well, why did it feel awkward? And not in a negative way that we then start to say, oh, I wasn't doing my best for the spirit world. Just look at what was the lesson in the learning in it. How are we going to work with this? How are we going to move with this? And, and then listen to the people. I'm sure every medium, because I know we've got a lot of mediums on the chat again this evening. sometimes we think we haven't done a good job, and a person who's received a message that night comes up and says, that was just wonderful and it was so moving and so touching, or that was my dad and it was just him, and we need to listen to the response from the people around us, the people who've had the message, not go, oh, I didn't get your dad's surname, or I didn't get his driving plate number, or I didn't get his date of birth, or I didn't get his. If they came up to you and said, oh my God, it was like my dad was standing there.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether we got the evidence we wanted, they got the experience they needed.
That is so true. And we got to remember, when we do what you were saying about earlier, we go out and watch other mediums work, not to be critical, not to, what was it somebody posted very erroneously a few years ago? I sat there deliberately trying to block them, and I'm just like, oh nice. My God.
How wonderful. How nice of you to go to a demonstration wanting to be disappointed.
I know. I was just like, wow. I was thinking more about you, mate, than anything. Anyway. There's nothing wrong with spiritualism. It's just the spiritualists we got to get sorted out.
You get people. I mean, we all, and I have to be honest, sometimes some of the best messages have gone to people that as cross-folded arm skeptic, who's been dragged along normally by their other half, that said, oh, you got to come and see this. And then when they get a message and you see the change in them, and then almost quizzing their other half, going, did you tell them about Dad? Did you tell? Where you reach. So, but if someone knows about energy, if someone knows about that dynamic, and are deliberately going with the idea of, I'm not going to enjoy this, or I'm coming to tear it down, then that's silly, really, and it's sad. Go along and watch another medium. If you find that medium doesn't resonate with you after that demonstration, then just don't go again.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's okay to say, do you know what? Not for me. We can't all be everyone's cup of tea. Crikey. We don't all appreciate each other's senses of humor. We don't appreciate the way that sometimes people demonstrate or do, Mr. Tack. That's the key thing. You've got to, as congregation members, realize the importance of your energy in that room as well. And again, we don't educate congregations enough about that. I think a lot of people come in wanting to be entertained, or sometimes wanting to be awkward, and say no when they mean yes. But that's okay, so long as that doesn't become the norm. Some people might come in initially going, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to feed the medium, or I don't want to give anything away. Okay, cool. But if we say just answer yes or no, we're not asking for life story, we're not asking for everything, just interact a little, so that we can work, then let it evolve. But if someone kept coming to the church and every time they were getting a message behaving in the same way for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, we're not learning that this is all about communication.
Exactly. Just need to catch up on a few of the comments coming in.
Fabulous.
So, Cat Goddess, going back to the statement about walking a mile in other person's shoes, still might not have the full picture of things in one way or another, but might still actually experience it differently. Yeah,
absolutely. And also, isn't it, what do we say? There's their side, there's their truth, there's the other person's truth, and then there's the real truth. That every perception, every side of a story has a different view to it and a different viewpoint to it. And again, we may not, I have lots of conversations with people, and they go, I don't understand how they can behave like this, and I don't understand how they can behave like that. And I said, then be thankful that you've never gone through what they've gone through to let you behave that way.
Yeah, they might be,
because if Yeah, if they're hurting and damaging other people, you can't understand it, then you've not gone through what they've gone through. So be thankful you haven't gone through that that's caused that. But then, realize that that person requires love, healing, support in some way. It may not be from you. We can't fix everyone, as in not we as the whole world, we as an individual. Some people, we're not the one that's there to help them. We might just be somebody that points them in another direction or is a moment in their life. The season, a reason, or a lifetime kind of attitude. But we sometimes just experiencing that and seeing that can make you feel a bit more thankful. Actually, I'm glad I don't have those thoughts, those feelings, those attitudes towards things in life. And I'm grateful for that.
Very true. Neil Payne, 100%.
Hi, Neil.
There are too many people that have strong opinions. Yeah, and unfortunately, social media supports that. And unfortunately, most people see social media now as the news channel. Well, here's a news flash.
It's not.
It ain't.
I think Facebook ought to introduce a 1 hour delay on the send. So you type it, but then it won't actually send for at least an hour. So normally by then you'd have come to your senses. Because lots of things, and I've been guilty of this and then have gone and deleted it, are knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah.
People see something, that's disgraceful, and they type away. And actually they've done nothing to check whether it's true, correct. I saw something the other day and it really did make me laugh, because I knew where they'd taken the source material from. So there is a guy who does all this prosthetic makeup to look like famous celebrities, and he does red carpets and all sorts as all these different male and female celebrities. And someone had taken a photo of him half finished in makeup and put that Hollywood was now cloning and sending in fake people to do news stories because Hollywood hadn't got enough news stories and couldn't get people to follow the narrative. And I was like, but that's a makeup artist who does this for a living, and everyone knows that's who he is and what he does. But it had already been turned into this story that this was some Illuminati cloning of stars, and because he did Jim Carrey, and the story was about Jim Carrey, I think. But it was him doing the makeup of Jim Carrey because he did a red carpet as Jim Carrey. Yeah. But everyone knew it was him doing it as Jim Carrey. So it was it's interesting how, again, just like we have those whispers of gossip that go round a church or go round in life, where all of a sudden, you've moved abroad and you've never even left your house, or something's happened and the drama's happened. That kind of happens online.
You're dead.
Yes, you're dead. You've died, and you've died. That I've experienced on more than one occasion. Not that people have thought I was dead; they've thought I've moved abroad and all sorts. Oh, you've come back from living in London. I've never gone to London. I've been to London, obviously, but I've never lived in it. Oh, and you were living in America at one point. No, still living down in the south of England. No. The jungle tom-toms were obviously out of sync.
I don't know what it is. I'm sure this is probably more akin to spiritualism, that we are very quick to shift people over to the other side without checking.
Good God, I thought you were dead. We should always just be able to go, no, still here.
Yeah, or go the other side of the coin. You go, how is he dead? Yeah, still dead.
Oh, don't. I've done that and I felt awful.
I know. So, anyway, moving on. Lovely. Tim, good evening, sir. Tim. He says, problem comes when you get the golden moment, but everything else shrinks in comparison, and you become judgmental of yourself, and we have to move beyond that and accept the medium that we are in that moment on the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think one of the things, and I've noticed it more, maybe it's as I've become older, more crotchety, or maybe I don't care so much, I don't know. But I've moved more into the joy. Whenever we're demonstrating, just to enjoy who's going to come and talk to me. And I've always had that. Who's going to come and talk to me? Who's going to come and play this evening? And I have that sense of joy. And when I'm working with other mediums on the platform, when I've done, multiple me, so our brain fog kicked in. When I've worked with other mediums on the platform at Pool, for instance, I love being in the energy of working with other mediums and the sheer joy of it. And me, again, there's no sense of competition, and it's just the joy of who's here, why have you come, what. And I forget that I think we have this big, especially in the earlier days of our mediumship, this onus that we're having to prove life after death and survive, and it's this onerous thing of we're in charge of proving the reality of existence of life after death, and we've got to do that, and we've got to absolutely nail it home, almost evangelical in a way. And then I think as we kind of let go of some of that, because actually we already know what we know and what we feel and what we believe, and actually just start to enjoy that we're meeting these lovely people that happen to be in the spirit world or part of the discarnate world rather than the incarnate. And then we're meeting the people that they're connecting to in the congregation. And if we could just bring mediumship in a sense down to, it's just having conversations, it's just meeting people, it's just talking to people. They just happen to be in a different space. And the more that I move into that, rather than worrying about have I proven survival, I'm not worrying about that. I'm just there knowing your loved one's here. Let me tell you or show you or talk to you about who I'm aware of. And hopefully it makes sense. And hopefully, there's the messages, emotion that comes, need that in that moment does its job, whatever that is meant to be. And that I've just been lucky to have been the intermediary. I've been, the telephone, if you like.
Yep. And it's Yep. No, I'm here. You keep going a little bit.
Oh, sorry. You look like you'd frozen.
Frozen.
You were enwrapped. Entranced.
Again, this comes back to that word evidence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, with the conversations we've been having so far tonight, the only person who can say that was evidential is the sitter.
Totally.
That is the only person.
Yeah.
I mean, we are pushed, and my mum, 5'9", permed hair, blue eyes, heavily built. She's not going to keep coming through every time saying I'm 5'9", I'm heavily built, I've got permed hair. She's going to come through, I'm his mother, and tell him.
Yeah. And I always used to sort of say to people, have a think as well. If I asked you to, what is it you remember about me when I'm gone? It won't necessarily be probably my name, won't be the first thing you think of. If you were thinking of me, you might be thinking about my terrible laugh, my terrible jokes, my filthy sense of humor, my love of Baileys. It might be all manner of different things, but it won't necessarily be, my name won't be the first thing you always think about.
Yeah, that's so true.
And if I ring my mum, I don't go, hello, mother, it's your son, Mark. I just go, it's me. And in my mind, and I know this is the job of the medium to find out the connections and whatever, but actually, are we at times getting in the way of the flow of true mediumship by wanting it worked in a certain way evidentially? Now, doesn't mean that we're not going to get loads and loads of wonderful evidence and we're going to have proof. But, what if somebody wants to start with the message before there's evidence of who's there? I want to come and talk to you. I'm drawn to you, and I want to talk to you about this because I'm aware of someone in the other world who's bringing this forward and working with that way, and then going, okay, but let's just find out who this is from. Now, sometimes in our wonderful movement, there'll be people sat in the congregation going, oh, they're just working psychically. No. Whereas actually, no, does that happen? No. Tell me the old story. But the fact is that everything, if we think that everything is energy and everything is connected in many different ways, yes, somebody could read lots of stuff from you. They could read all your memories of your loved ones.
Mm.
They could get everything from you in that psychic awareness and perception. But also a lot of things about your life, your loved ones are going to know and understand about. So when I hear, and this is probably going to get a load of voodoo dolls with pins put in about me tonight, but when I hear mediums
on sale here at Paul, only $4.99.
on sale, yeah, absolutely. If I'd only started selling those when I was 17, I'd be a millionaire. But if you had, I find it really difficult when you hear people say or people teaching say all messages from the spirit world are not from the spirit world. They're all psychic. The medium's gone onto the psychic and is reading psychically. And I argue the toss on that, and I will stand on that. That'll be a hill I'll stand on till the day I die. That your loved ones come because they know there is often need. And they know and have listened in to conversations. They have seen you in maybe your despair or your deliberations or your doubts or your crises moments. And therefore, they will bring whatever it is they need to bring. And then if we're starting to, and I've had this happen where mediums have given loads of evidence and then just say, they just wanted to check, they just wanted to say they loved you and that was it. And I'm like, but I'm in a moment of crisis where I've asked that person for support and it's not come. To say, yes, I'm proud of you or I love you, fabulous. That's really nice. But I know that medium is going to get an ear bending if they were paying attention from my loved ones going, why have you stopped talking? You've proved we're here, but then you've cut us short. And there's a thing, I never released it because every time I was going to release this article, it was after I'd been to a demonstration where it had happened to me. And I didn't want any medium to think it was about them. But I have a thing called the empty envelope syndrome. And it's where you've been sending out your thoughts to the spirit world for so long, asking for help, for clarity, for whatever it may be. And then one day the letterbox rattles. And when you go to the front door, there is a letter there. And the letter has your name and address on the front of it. And on the back of it, the return address is the name of your loved one. And even on the envelope, there's the smell of their perfume or their cologne. And you are so excited because you know that this communication has come for you in response to what you've asked for. And when you open the envelope up, it's empty. There's no message. There's no letter. So we know that the person's heard us. We know that the person wants to communicate with us. And then we've stopped there being a message. And I've had that. I can't tell you how many times. I don't know whether people just freak out when they get the connection and go, oh God, it's you. How many times has that been said off the platform? Oh God, it's you. And it's like, I'm lovely to work with. I'll take a message really well. But the amount of times the evidence has been there and then the message has always been kind of cut. And I've seen it happen a lot. And I think you've gone for me personally, you've gone too much on, I've got to prove survival, rather than remembering I'm here as the mouthpiece for the other world. I think Margaret's got a lovely comment in there, Margaret Challenger. Hello, Margaret. Let the spirit speak. Yeah, absolutely. And again, you know, we may have other people that tell us you're not meant to say, or, you know, this is our rules on the platform. But then is one of our rules in spiritualism, we've got to censor the people in the spirit world? I don't think it is.
And again, you know, we come back on the evidence. That you only gave 3 bits of evidence. All right, I only said 5'9" mum and blue hair or whatever, but the recipient totally understood the manner and the content of the communication as their mother would have said it.
Yeah,
we had a lovely overlook that evidence.
Yeah. We had a lovely moment in Circle many years ago, and I had one of my students, I said to him, right, we're demonstrating tonight. And he went, oh, do we have to? And I went, yeah. And I said, so we're all going to stand up and give it. And he went, oh, can I do it sat down? And I said, if you want to, but I said, you're not getting out of demonstrating. Oh, thank you, Ashley, bless you. So anyway, he sort of sat for a bit and then he went, I've got this lady here. And then he put his leg out to the side and he put his hand on his leg, and she's running a hand up her leg and going, "What lovely legs I've got." And we all started laughing, of course, because here he is sat in circle, rubbing his hand up his leg. And he started giving this message to another member of the group and saying about this lady and her legs, and how she keeps taking him to her legs and how beautiful they are, and how she'd do that with other people, and yada da da da. And anyway, went through this other information about it came, and also the message that came with it. And when we finished, he went into, well, that wasn't very good, really, was it? And I said, why not? He said, well, I didn't give who she was. I didn't give the relationship. I didn't give a name. I didn't give this. I didn't give that. I didn't give how she passed. I said, right, stop. Let's turn to the person who received the message and ask the question. At what point did you know without a doubt who he was talking about? And she said, the minute he ran his hand up his leg and said, haven't I got lovely legs? Because this friend of hers, the minute she was in a room full of men, did that to gain the attention of everyone in the room. She said, without a doubt, I knew who he was talking to. I didn't need any other proof. I didn't need any as the recipient.
Exactly. And
so why over gild the lily when the spirit world knows the significance of what they're giving? It's again, does it come down to us as mediums thinking that it has to be a certain way? And are we also, maybe a controversial point here, but are we also being forced by people around us to edit and clone our mediumship into ways that are not are working? Yes, it's useful to have parts to a message. Yes, it's important to make sure that we've listened to the other world, that we haven't done anything deliberately upsetting or offensive, because that is really up to us. If someone had very colourful language, yes, on a Sunday service on a platform, yes, we do have to be a little wary of how we put the odd word across. And some people, every other word needs to be edited, because there are people who've had very colourful language in lives.
I'm going to come back one day.
It's all right. I'll have me automatic reply service on in my head. I'm so sorry. This medium is unavailable at the moment. Please leave a message and he'll get back to you.
Use the pun. Please leave a message. Anyway, moving on. Lovely Leslie Thomas. Leslie, I hope you're much better now, darling. You were going through it a little while back. And she has, I always say, be who you are, but you have to understand soul growth with your development and work with the energy of spirit also. Understanding what you're actually doing by blending those energies with unconditional love. You can only do your best at the time. Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
It is what it is in that moment. And that's why the beating ourselves up is so redundant and actually detrimental. Yes, observe and think about how we can improve, but don't castigate ourselves continuously for, I haven't done a good enough job. I haven't done, because we're going to end up imprisoning our own minds and our own mediumship through our own negativity. And, the other world see what we're going through. And, as Lawrence knows, and some of you know, I've had a couple of years of really not so great health, and it's impacted my sleep, my mentality, all sorts of different things. And so there have been times when I've gone to demonstrate, and I think I did 2 services like a month apart at the church. Yeah. And they couldn't have been 2 more different demonstrations of mediumship for me. And after the one that I would say was not at my best, I was like, oh. And then I thought, hang on a minute, just take a moment, think about what you've been going through. You've been through a lot of pain, you've been through a lot of high painkillers, a lot of medication, a lot of this, that, and the other. And you're worried that you're not communicating with the spirit world that well. You haven't been speaking and getting your brain around ordinary everyday conversations. Give yourself a break.
Yeah,
And then a month later, when I was feeling a lot better in myself and I wasn't on the heavy amounts of medication that I was on, the demonstration was a different kettle of fish altogether.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we need to appreciate things in our own lives are affecting what's going on in our mind, in our perception, and in our awareness, and give ourselves a break. But again, we can be very aware that there are people sat in the congregation going, well, he's not very good today, is he? Oh, but we can't worry about that as mediums.
Yeah.
We go in, we do what we do. We're either invited back or we're not. And you know, and that's the thing. I was thinking about this earlier, funnily enough, about honesty within our mediumships, our churches, and things like that. You know, back in the day, if a grand dame of spiritualism sat in a church, didn't think you were ready, and you were up on platform, they'd have told you to go back to circle. Now people don't approach people with a level of honesty to talk about their mediumship, or if they're having problems. He does, yeah. You, Mr. Tact. But we need. But sometimes we need to. If someone asks us, if anyone asks me, I'll always be kind of honest. Yeah. I won't now go and push my opinion on someone,
Exactly.
Because that's a different kettle of fish. But if someone says, you know, what did you think about that? Or what happened? Well, what happened there? What was your opinion on it? Then I will go in and I'll be gentle and as tactful as I can possibly be. You know, we're not here to burst anyone's bubble deliberately or to create upset or harm. Going back to that earlier conversation, but sometimes we need to sort of say to people, you know, I'm not certain this is the spirit world, or this is where it needs to be at the moment, or. You know, I can remember I went to see a trance demonstration and the energy in the room was amazing. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be brilliant. And it started off with philosophy, and then suddenly it turned into trance clairvoyance, but the energy just dropped like a stone. And the medium was back out of trance within about 15 minutes. And afterwards, the medium said to me, because there was someone I knew, and they said, what happened there? And I said, do you want me to be honest? I said, whose decision was it to start giving messages during the trance state? Yours or theirs? And they went, well, everyone wants a message, don't they? And I went, no, that wasn't what we were here for. We were here for the message of philosophy. And you brought yourself back out of that control state, back into ordinary clairvoyance, and brought yourself to full consciousness. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do trance clairvoyance, by the way. I'm not saying that scuppers it. But in that instance, it was the shift of the medium wanting it to go a different direction to the other world, and brought it all to a halt, sadly, when the power in there was remarkable. But he asked an opinion and I gave it, and he took it in the spirit that it was meant, because it wasn't where the other world wanted to take it in that moment. You know, as I say, you know, when you think about Gordon and Paddy and trance clairvoyance, and I know Tim, who's on, often teaches trance clairvoyance with students as well. So there isn't a problem with trance clairvoyance, by the way. It was just in that instance, it was building up for this totally different energy, and then literally the minute this, oh, and I've got your father, and he says the energy just went, it dropped like a stone, and everyone in the room could just feel it. It just went. So, you know, and that's part of the learning that we have. And if we've got people around us, and I think this is an important thing for all of us, no matter where we are in the world or what we're doing, is to have people that we can have some honest conversations with about our mediumship, and be able to have that. I mean, I was very lucky to have Glyn for that. Laurie and I talk a lot. There's lots of other people. I'm very honoured that, you know, I get phone calls and messages asking to talk about different things that people are concerned about, and you need to have that sometimes. You need to be able to have that discussion and an honesty with someone and say, yeah, I'm not certain on that, or, you know, if I were you, I'd look at things maybe this way for a bit. Sometimes it's even on people's whole direction. You know, I can remember there was a lovely medium, but also his the energy of him was such a lovely healer. But he was quite fixed on the idea of doing mediumship. And I said, are you sure you're not interested in doing healing? No, it's mediumship. And I said, oh, okay. And every time he'd sit in circle, he kept saying to me, he said, it's really weird. Every time I sit and we sit in the power, he said, all these people turn up in white coats. And I went, oh, and I said, does it remind you of anything? And he went,
Yeah.
no, he said, I just don't. And this went on for week after week. And after a few weeks, I said, can I show you a book? And I went up to my library and I pulled out one of the Harry Edwards books, which was a picture of Harry and the healing team all in the white coats. And he went, that's what I've been seeing. And I said, yeah. I said, any thoughts on healing now? And he kind of twigged. I mean, he still did wonderfully with his mental mediumship. But as soon as he stepped into his power within the healing, by God, did he hit his groove. He really did.
And similar on the last circle course, there was 2 people there, and every time they walked in, I'm just going, healer, healer. And I keep those thoughts to myself, because we do, don't we, in churches, categorize. People walk in the door and go, healer, medium, nuisance, healer, medium, you know, and it's just, really? So one of the circle nights, we worked with healing.
Yeah.
Deliberately, because A, it's another expression of mediumship, but B,
absolutely,
to give these 2 an experience. And I'm really pleased, so pleased that after that they have now joined the healing group, because they went, it felt right.
Yeah.
It felt
and
really
all mediumship is healing. I think if we look at mediums of the past particularly, and also present, but what we noticed with a lot of the mediums was that they explored all the different possibilities within awareness. And, you know, we think of Harry Edwards and you go, oh, Harry Edwards was a healer. Well, he was a good medium, a good speaker, a good trance medium, physical medium, all sorts. But he found his groove, and lots of mediums, when we look at them, we think of them in a certain way. I mean, my first and primary love has always been the healing, but most people think of me as either the mental mediumship or working with the trance states, because that's what I enjoy doing as well. But we are multifaceted, and a chunk of people want to shortcut or fast track to what am I? You know, what am I? Am I a medium? Am I trance? You know, a lot of people say to me, am I trance medium? And I go, well, everything's entrancement. So trance is in there, but it isn't necessarily, is it your thing? Well, only you'll discover that by sitting and working with it and working with the other world and letting the other world find out what's possible with you, and how that trance expresses itself in different ways for different people. You know, no one size fits all, and no one method is correct for everyone. But again, people going, oh, what am I? I want to be told what I am or what I should be working on. And it's like, well, actually work on all of it. Look at all of it. You know, and this is why I'm always a little reluctant, as you said, to push people in a direction. And I often say to people, you know, just listen when we're talking. If I kind of nudge you or say, have you thought of, or have you been thinking about, or what's been happening with your spiritual writing or your psychic art or whatever it may be, that I'm nudging you to look into that in maybe more depth, rather than saying spirit are telling me you are A, because you might not choose to be that. You could be the world's greatest platform medium, but choose never to step on a platform.
Yeah.
You know, because it may not be for you. It may not feel right for you. It may not be what you want to do. It may not be the direction you want to take it. So you may have the potential, doesn't mean you'll fulfill it.
And it's also the sitters or the students' perception. We're just coming out of it now, but we did go through a very big phase not too long ago of everybody was clamoring for trance. But there was an awful lot of people on a very grave misconception that their version of trance is, I'm going to sit there, shut my eyes, spirit do all the work, and open my eyes, and job done.
Yeah,
wouldn't that be nice?
wouldn't it be lovely? I did when I went over to Holland. You know, when I said about people with the voodoo dolls, well, someone made a bit of a complaint on my first night because I said, any of you that think that the spirit world are just going to take over and do it all for you are absolutely wrong. I said, you are not a puppet. The spirit world are not going to pop their hand up your bum and make your lips move. It doesn't work that way. Most of the people laughed. One or two weren't impressed. But I am what I am at the end of the day.
I am what I am.
But it's these ideas of, I'm going to get out of the way and the other world are going to do it all. We are working together. We are working in cooperation. Everything, whether it's healing, whether it's mediumship, psychic art, inspirational speaking, whatever it is, it's a we effort. It's not I. And if we can get beyond this I, because it's the I that worries about whether it's good or not. If we felt into the power at the end of a demonstration of how the spirit world felt, we would not be going away going, I don't know whether I did that well. Because we would feel the love and the gratitude that was there that moment happened. If we recognize that within the healing, that it's having a profound effect on us and the recipient and on the spirit world at the same time. And whatever that person's healing journey is, has no reflection on whether we're a good healer or not. Because again, healers do that. I've had people that are healers saying, but I'm not a good healer because that person passed away. And if I was a good healer, I'd have been able to. And I said, no. I said, maybe you gave them the best healing, which was the dignity and the ease of discomfort and everything before they passed. You helped them with that journey. You know, you're attaching an outcome to something that's not under your control and is not what you think it is.
And that's one of our biggest blockers, isn't it? When we get that tunnel vision, the same in our evidential mediumship. I want that outcome. And suddenly everything starts falling apart and you wonder why. Expectation
and assumption. And again, we need to back off of doing that. You know, if we're going to, if we just go into something and say, you know, we enter into every moment as an experiment and an experience. We enter into every healing session and demonstration, every reading, as a moment of, let's see what happens when this all comes together. And then once it's done, that was done in the best way that it could in that moment.
Yeah.
As Margaret said, it was what it was in that moment. And that's the thing. You know, getting caught up in, it should have been this, it should have been that. You know, when I talk to students about healing, and I said, you know, there are times when you put your hands on someone and it's like the entire national grid is flowing through you. You're absolutely breaking out into a sweat. You're burning up. They're burning up. You're leaving red handprints on shoulders and wherever. And you're going like, oh my God, it's just overwhelming. And then the next person sits down and you put your hands on them and you go, are these things on? And you're just thinking, this is awful. This healing is terrible. This is compared to this last person that was like the national, and when you finish that session where you think virtually now it's happening, the person gets up and goes, oh my God, that was overwhelming. And you're thinking, thank heavens it wasn't the national grid. We'd have fried you. So again, the healing intelligence and the need of the individual is unique. So again, you can't judge how these things go. And again, you can't judge very well your own mediumship from within the experience, because to you, it's a different perception as to what everyone else is seeing out there.
Yep.
You're in it, so you haven't got a clear view of what's going on. That's why sometimes having a good mentor or friend who can watch what you do and how you work and give you little pointers of things that maybe are a bit annoying, because sometimes we get into habits. I used to say to people, after everything. So I've got a man who's about 6'4", and I do that. And my mum went, will you stop with the knows? And I had someone else who told me no ums and no ers from doing that in public speaking. Leave it as a pause.
Yeah.
No no so if you've got lovely people that you trust, and won't be offended by if they say to you, do you know what, you do this and maybe you want to see if you can stop doing that. It will, once someone highlights that, it will be a little bit bumpy for you for a bit, because you'll see yourself doing it then and going, don't say that word, or don't make
do
that
it and then remember. But you get to the stage of you remember before you do it.
Yeah, but that's what my mum did for me. She would give me a critique. Nice Virgo mother. She'd give me a really good critique of the mediumship every time I do it. And so she'd say, you did this, but it didn't come across very well, and you said this and it didn't make sense when you were saying it, so maybe you need to think about. And so she would do that for me. And I would trust her to do that. So, and I think that's, again, this is where having people you can trust, whether these are people that you sit in a circle with, or whether these are mentors, or whether these are colleagues or friends or even family members, whoever they may be, is really, really key, I think, because otherwise mediumship can become very isolating.
Yes.
I know, when you look at some of the people that are online here who we know each other from way back in the day at the college, you kind of go off into the world and start working. And sometimes it's literally you and groups of students or groups of other people or groups of churches. And we're not always necessarily, connecting and having that support and time like we used to when we were sat in circle or when we were sat on courses. And so, this is where it's always important to where you go to talk to people when you're concerned about your mediumship and you're concerned about, and that's, whether that's your circle leader or that's another medium, that I think is vital, really is vital.
Somebody said to me many years ago, and I really get it, and it's one of those sayings, each time you go back to it, it's got more depth. And they talk about your mediumship is a lone path, but you needn't be alone.
Absolutely. You can choose to be. You can choose to make yourself very alone and separate yourself away from everything. And sometimes that's needed. Sometimes, I've had it. I know you've had it. I know many of the people online will have had it as well, where you step back and away for whatever reason, just to kind of regroup. And you may still be working, but you kind of pull away from other activities, or you pull away to kind of think about next steps or the next version of you and your mediumship and what you're presenting into the world, whatever it may be. And sometimes life does that. Sometimes it's nothing to do with the mediumship. Sometimes it's our health, our family, our work, whatever it may be. But this is the thing. Our mediumship is not just about what we demonstrate in the world. It's our relationship to spirit in our daily life as well. And therefore, you may want to develop mediumship, but never be a demonstrating medium, never be a private sitting medium, not do anything outwardly mediumistic or spiritual in an obvious way. But you have that nuanced awareness and perception in everyday life that enriches your life and the lives of the people around you in a myriad of different ways.
Definitely. We need to catch up on a few of the comments here.
Oh, yes, cool.
So, lovely Reverend Ashley. She's saying she's not one who partakes in the certification rules for assessment. Do the recipients of messages get asked, interviewed by the assessors, that question about the quality of their evidence?
I believe they do. If someone's doing the pass schemes and things like that, yeah, I believe they do.
Okay, I'm unaware of that either way. So, good question, Ashley. Lovely Margaret. I've been given to understand that unfortunately students are taught that they have to bring forward several points before they can actually go into the evidential part, which is like what you have said. And Margaret's saying that she has lovely legs.
There you go.
Nice to know, Margaret. Lucky Paul.
But yeah, I think you have, again, one of the things I always go back to with Glyn, which some people loved and some people didn't. And again, horses for courses. He would never tell you how to do something. He was never prescriptive. He'd keep telling you to go back and find out what the other world meant or what the other world was showing you or why. He wouldn't tell you have to do it this way.
Yeah.
So he would let you and the other world unfold it in the way they wanted to lead it, with you working with the other world, rather than being told, well, why haven't you got this and why haven't he would do that with some of us. I mean, I know Tim and Neil are on here, and I can remember standing on the platform in the sanctuary, and I'm giving this message to someone, and there's Glyn going, and where are they from? Where did they live? And I went, I don't know. And he went, I know you don't know, but they know. And I'm going, I'm not good with geography. I don't know one part of the country from another. And I said, well, there's a cathedral there. And she said, yes, there's a cathedral right next to where they lived. And I went, so they live near the cathedral? Yeah, but where is it? I don't know. And we had this humdinger on the platform. And when I sat down and went, oh, for God's sakes, it was Norfolk. And she went, yeah, it was. The minute I let go trying to get it, I found it. Yeah. But it was just so funny because we had this humdinger of an argument about, she knows it. And I went, yeah, but now I'm trying to focus on it. My brain's trying to work it out. And the minute I sat down, we got it. So it just proves the point. The information is there. Just let go. But don't have Glyn sat there rabbiting in your ear trying to make you get it.
Jan Rich, she says, we have to do our own self-healing, which hopefully results in our spiritual growth. And I think people out there, when they see us on platform, don't realise this.
And I think they forget we're ordinary people as well. We don't have all the answers. We don't lead a charmed life. We are very privileged, I think, and honoured in what we're able to, in what we do. But it doesn't stop us from having our own stuff to deal with. Yeah. And often when we go up onto a platform, we have to kind of set all of that aside to be the medium that we need to be for the other world. We have to kind of, how many times, I'm sure every medium that's worked on a platform here, you've got the start of a stinking cold, or you feel rough, but you haven't cancelled because you don't want to let the church down. And the minute you get up on the platform and step into the power, it goes, you feel fabulous. Mm-hmm. The minute you get off the platform, you feel like we're rubbish. And you just think, could you not have kept it away for a bit longer? But, again, we have to put sometimes those life things aside, and people don't see that and don't know what we're going through.
And as I say, you can extend that out into the world, can't you?
Yeah.
Walking through the bus station, I don't know what these people are going through. They don't know what I'm going through, but that's good, isn't it? That's wonderful. Ashley Oliver, look out, she's after something.
No, she's lovely. My friend. My friend. We've got lots of friends on tonight. It's fabulous.
Are you paying them? Ashley says you're a wonderful, insightful teacher, Mark. And yes, he is. But don't tell him you get pig-headed. Ashley Oliver again, couldn't agree more when we were talking about healing mediumship, philosophical, all the gamut of mediumship expressions. We are multifaceted instruments reflecting the great light in many ways. Yeah.
Lovely. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
You've got to have that as a quote, Ashley, somewhere now. We are multifaceted instruments reflecting the great light in many ways. Have it on a card. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I think we caught up. A few people just saying hello. A few people just joining us. Obviously, Eurovision was just finished or something.
No, it goes on till like 11:30 or something silly, doesn't it?
God.
I know. It's a whole night in for everyone.
Oh, no.
The Eurovision party.
Just pop upstairs, sit and cuddle my pussy. Like Mr. Slocum.
Absolutely. Say nothing. Oh, dear. Down to earth mediumship.
Yeah, this is it. Mark, it's been absolute joy as always. We love our catch-ups. I must come over to you now. You live, not
Yes.
out in the wilds.
No, with my
Out in
lovely new
moorland.
abode.
Yes, and come and see your deer and your new abode.
Yeah.
So it's been a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you so much, Mark. Been absolute pleasure.
You are more than welcome, and it's been lovely to see everyone online as well. It's been lovely.
Yeah. And yes, big thank you everybody who's joined in online as well too. Remember, you can see our service live here tomorrow, and we have Carla Hain with us from Weymouth. There will be no Lyceum next Saturday because we will be in the midst of the rally weekend. Yay! Very, very busy weekend. We've got Phil Dykes, Kerry McLeod, Nick Witham, and Stephen is trying his best, but I've said to him, you don't push yourself. If you can, great. If you can't, it's not a problem. All right. So you might be getting a phone call, Mark. For a full weekend, so Friday night, we've got a gala opening Dem of Mediumship. Saturday and Monday, we've got a 2-day workshop with Phil and Kerry, and that's working with the altered states. Saturday night, we have a talk with Nick Witham and science and healing. Really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the whole weekend. I'm looking forward to Tuesday actually as well, but that's just me being selfish. What else have we got? You've got the rally day. So we have a service an hour earlier from 10 to 11:30. Then a series of talks throughout the afternoon from Phil and Kerry, Nick Witham, Stephen Mager, and myself. I've been told I've got to say something. So there we go. In the evening, we are showing the film We Do Not Die. I've forgotten the name. Yes, We Do Not Die. And that is a film produced with Phil Dykes and Kerry McLeod. So obviously they're going to be here. We will watch the film and then have a chance to ask questions after. Monday day is part 2 of the workshop, working in the altered states. And then Monday night is our closing evening, when all the mediums are working together. And we call it experimental mediumship, but we've been stepping out of the usual perception of what evidential mediums do and working with various tools. I did the musical mediumship here last Sunday, and I must admit I was a bit nervous. That's not what I nearly said, but I was a bit nervous. And it worked. It was awesome. It was really good. So yeah, lots going on. And again, thank you everybody for joining us. Lovely, wonderful, wonderful people. Have a brilliant night, whatever you're doing. And don't forget, next weekend, apparently, the weather is going to be a humdinger. Yay! Break out the ice creams. So a very good night, everybody. Have a peaceful and blessed weekend. Good night.
Night.